And welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and this is my review for Mimi. It's now on Netflix. It's an interesting one. This film was only meant to come out on the 30th on Friday, but it was leaked, so Netflix put it out early. So thanks to Kay, who commented on one of my videos, Kay, who's not my wife, to say, hey, you should probably check this out. I checked it out, and I'm here to talk about it. So thank you very much. Let's jump in. Mimi is introduced by Banu to an American couple as a surrogate in exchange for 2 million rupees. She decides to have the baby even when they change their mind. Okay, so this is an interesting one. This is going to be a non-spoiler review, but I am going to talk spoilers at the end because damn, there are some things we need to talk about with this film. First thing I should say, it does feel a little bit long in the tooth. It runs over 2 hours, and there were moments when I was checking when the film was going to end. That's not because I didn't enjoy the film, it's just because I literally thought the film was coming to an end. When I pushed pause in the film and saw there was another half an hour, I was like, where on earth is this going? And once you get towards like the last quarter of the film, it's like another story. It's a little bit bonkers that way. I wasn't expecting to do that. There's a lot that they kind of shove into this film. There's a lot going on. At the first thoughts, I thought maybe it was going to be a Bollywood film. It's not that. There is a dance sequence, but that happens live, and there are montages in this film that has soundtrack over them to kind of convey an emotional state that's happening with whatever's happening on screen at the time. There's probably about 6 or 7, so they use that to kind of further the plot of the story, and that's the way it goes. I feel like I'm dancing with my hand movements here. Um, However, I thought the acting and the story, the emotionality was all very good. The cinematography was excellent at times. I was like, that's a very beautiful shot. Sometimes when the shot is so gorgeous, my mind goes like into filmmaking mode, like, whoa, I need to know how they did that. The cinematographer is using the amazing lens. They're obviously using an f-stop of 50, and and my mind goes into that. I'm like, yeah. And so it took me out of it a little bit just because I was thinking filmmaking wise, how did they do that shot? So there are moments where I was just like, yeah, this is beautifully done, beautifully shot. The story, however, is where this film shines. It's emotionally evocative. It's one of those stories where you think you know where the story is going, and then it kind of takes a twist, a turn. I was surprised at how funny the dialogue was as well. There were moments in this when I was laughing out loud and I didn't expect it. Sometimes when I'm watching an Indian movie, there are comedy moments that I don't get or I don't laugh at because it's cultural. And even though a lot of the comedy moments this time around are still cultural, they work to come across to multiple cultures. At least I think so. I have a little bit of understanding of the Indian culture, but I would say that for me, this really came across, and the comedy moments you get. Sometimes they come across as a bit cringy, but if you understand the culture, then you know that's kind of how films are made, or a lot. It's like its own genre of itself. It's a world unto itself of how that timing or how a certain moment is expressed. That's what you kind of tend to get, but it really works in this film. So we have this Mimi character who wants to go to Bollywood. Who wants to go to their version of Bollywood, and become an actress, a superstar, and she needs money to be able to do a music video, and she needs a lot of money to be able to do that. And so she sees this opportunity of becoming a surrogate mother, and even trying to get people to understand what surrogacy is in this film was hilarious. That worked quite well. But the film takes a darker side as the parents, or the surrogate parents, or the American people who want the child, decide not to, that they no longer want it. They're just like, nope, sorry. And you'll understand why. And I'll talk about that in my spoilers later. But suffice to say, it turns, the story goes darker and sadder, and the consequences of her actions are really kind of shown of what this means for the family. It could ruin the family's name. It's all about culture again. Like, she's not married, obviously, because surrogacy is very different, and it's all about the things that would bring shame to your family, and losing your dreams and changing your dreams. And there's a whole lot of those questions that are kind of thrown into this film, and kind of works. And then when you get to that last quarter of the film, you're thinking, what on earth, what are they doing now? And it goes into something else, and you're like, there were a lot of times in this film, especially with certain characters, that I got really angry, because the film is obviously doing its job, and I was just like, those people suck. They really suck. That's all I could convey. Like I was watching the film and I was like getting these emotional moments. There's a couple of films on Netflix at the moment where, when it comes to parenthood and motherhood, there, I guess if you're a parent and you understand the emotional intensity that comes with that as being a parent, that you understand that your nurture or your protection kind of kicks into gear. And I think that's probably anybody would be able to relate to kind of that, because people want to look after each other for the most part, and when you see something that's unjust, um, you get upset for them, obviously. And this film manages to do that in amongst the kind of culturalisms that are happening on screen. It also kind of shines a light on this whole world of what do you do if you want to be a parent. Surrogacy is the only way, apparently, and it's not. But that's kind of the story. I would say it does really well. Apart from, I think it was a little bit dragged out. I think there are definitely 10 to 15 minutes they could have taken out. The pacing could have been a little bit quicker. There are certain scenes that they didn't need to do a montage of emotional clips together with people crying. And, it seemed like it went on for quite a bit. Or, the montage of someone growing up. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think for the most part it does, but I still feel like it could have been shaved off somewhere. I enjoyed this. I think it's a solid B plus film. I'm quite surprised. I've never heard of it before. I will be looking out what other films this director does. I thought the acting, particularly with the taxi driver who becomes the supposed father, I thought he was very good. His comedic timing was great, and the emotional moments from the family and our protagonist Mimi in particular really drives home what she's going through. And I thought that was fantastic. So, a really enjoyable film. Even if you're not used to watching Indian films, chuck this on, see what you think. Give it a 20-minute segment and see if you're into the story. I think you might find yourself being kind of drawn into it. The only kind of letdown, I think, partly was the kind of the American actors just felt wrong. In all aspects, but maybe that was my like I don't like you moments. I don't know if their acting was bad or whether I was just like, yeah, I don't like you. But the story does what it needs to with those characters. So let me know in the comments below what you thought about this movie. Are you going to watch it? I'm going to talk spoilers now, so that's been my review. Okay, so spoilers. So the big turning plot point in this film is when the American parents decide that they no longer want the child because, according to the doctors, the child is going to be Down syndrome, and so they ask the mother to abort the child, and then they just leave, and you're thinking, my gosh, they really suck as human beings. Like, I understand the fear of raising a child with a disability, but that doesn't mean you need to end their life, and so the Mimi character obviously decides, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have the child, even at the expense of my dreams. And you see that the baby is born, and there was nothing wrong with the baby because it was a false kind of result. And apparently that happens a lot. And so she raises the baby. Obviously, you see that last, we get towards the film and we have a montage of the child growing up, and it's all wonderful until the two families collide. Not the American, but the fake dad who has his own family, and that all comes to light, and you see a bit more about the culture. And I thought, yeah, that was a really way to go with it. It's real, like the consequences of your choices. I thought that was really well done. But then the American parents come back after a few years, having seen this white child in America on a Facebook post, and they want their child back. And in my mind, I'm thinking, there's no ways a judge is going to allow these parents who wanted the child aborted and now suddenly like, oh, the child is healthy, so now I'm going to claim that's my child. But technically, they have a right because it's their blood, their DNA, so they could claim that. And so the mother, Mimi, doesn't want to have that battle, is willing, so loves her child, is willing to give the child to these parents so that her child doesn't have to go through years of court cases and being asked awful questions. My question is about this storyline with them is that why were they coming to India to find a surrogacy? Are there no other surrogacy in all 50 states of America? Are there no surrogacy places that they could find a perfect, healthy looking person? Okay, so maybe they've decided they wanted particularly an Indian young looking woman. But even then, you could go to the thousands of orphanages, which is what they do. But these guys were so broken in their thinking that they were like, yeah, we're just gonna get rid of that person who has Down syndrome. But then they were willing to take on a child, and they didn't know whether that child was hurt or ill themselves in an orphanage. And more often than not, the kids are, because they haven't been looked after. They, orphanages often, especially in third world places, don't have the funds or means to look after the kids in a really healthy way. I know personally, I've met a few here in the UK that have come from orphanages. One particular springs to mind that had a horrific upbringing, and so you have that story that kind of clashes. And I was just like, yeah, I just still don't buy you as good parents. I don't trust you anymore. And so I always had that kind of feeling of, yeah, you guys suck, and I don't know that I trust you with her, because if that's what you were willing to do, what are you going to do down the line? Anyway, those are my thoughts on the kind of the spoiler moments. Let me know your thoughts below. What other film really grinds your gears, was it gets you emotionally involved, where when characters do things that you just don't want them to do? You want them to be better human beings. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this, but most of all, until next time, remember, live longer Tuesday.